Automation of vehicles. Well, one thing that is going to be automated, and it's really big, literally big, trucks. And that's the panel you just moderated, Richard, was all about that. One of the things that impressed me was maybe the comment at the end. You made the point that a recent study suggested a lot of jobs might be lost from that. But we didn't necessarily hear that. Why don't you give your thoughts on what we heard about that topic?
Yeah, there's been a lot of media articles about this, cataclysms of job losses, and some studies have, what has been characterized as kind of a worst case was this study we talked about at the panel, 1 million jobs lost within 10 years. I find no one in the truck industry believes that, strongly because there's a huge driver shortage now, so if a truck is automated now, it's decrementing that driver shortage. Plus, there's so many other duties that truck drivers do other than driving. There's important roles for them. So it's really not seen that way by the folks deep inside the truck industry. The drivers will be able to hire on now and retire, no problem.
What I really liked about your panel was the diversity of the people who are up there in terms of how they represented the various aspects of the trucking industry.
Right. We had certainly one of the biggest fleets in the country, U.S. Express. They've been a pioneer in adopting technology, so they've really thought deeply about these things. Max Fuller, the chairman, was with us. We had a couple of technology companies, Peloton and Uber, ATG. They're developing platooning. They're developing highly automated trucks, plus a traditional player, Volvo Group. The traditional truck OEMs will still play a very, very important role because it's tough to just start up a company and start building trucks. It's another thing to start up a company and apply some software to a truck. And then we had the regulatory side represented by both ATA and the Federal Motor Carrier Administration.
Speaking of Peloton and the platooning, it seemed like there was quite a consensus that that's going to happen sooner rather than later.
Yeah, absolutely. I asked if it would be commonplace by 2030. There was broad agreement that it would. If we'd had more time, I would have asked about 2025. And my personal opinion is it'll be commonplace by then.
And do you think it'll start just kind of on the long haul routes? I found it interesting. I think it was 90% of the travel is from exit to exit or something.
Right. It'll be on both long haul and short haul because platooning is the kind of thing for every mile you platoon, you get a benefit. You don't need a long trip in order to get benefits from platooning. It really depends on the type of truck operations you have, and some truck operations like UPS are hub and spoke. So they've got trucks going down the same roads all the time. It's very easy to dispatch drivers in platoons for several trucking companies like UPS.
One of the cool things about this conference or about your session is people could ask their questions electronically, and one was about safety on the platooning, and I felt the answers were pretty well thought out.
Yeah, when you first hear about platooning, all sorts of safety problems come to mind. Well, needless to say, the guys developing this have thought about that years ago, and they're working that. Platoon trucks will respond to drivers who cut in, and they may legitimately cut in order to make their exit. The trucks will adapt. They'll sort of open up the gap. They'll come back together. Platooning can be managed in that way. Plus, the first generation platooning systems will have fully alert drivers in both trucks. Both drivers are steering and monitoring the road environment. They can take an active role.
Well, and it sounds like they've been working with the states and the regulatory bodies to make sure that you can travel very close. What sort of distance are they talking about there?
Yeah, the states, they understand their laws are from a prior time. They want to enable platooning by and far. I haven't heard of any state that's opposing it. The kind of distances we're talking about are 40 to 50 feet. Some studies have shown that truck drivers today that are below 100 feet is extremely rare. So the typical truck driver now is 100 feet. So there's a huge fuel economy benefit to this closer following.
There's so many nuances to trucking, and you pointed that out in your opening slides, but the idea of remote trucking and drayage applications. Why don't you talk to some of those?
Yeah, there's niche applications all over. The truck industry is extremely diverse. So you can find situations where there's trucks moving on private property at a distribution center or warehouse, and they're moving trailers to and from the loading dock, and they just put them in a storage yard until the long haul trucker can come and pick that up. That's being manually driven now. It could absolutely be driverless in the future. We have other situations like moving freight from a seaport into inland, but only 20 miles or so. Those are repetitive routes. These sorts of situations lend themselves to earlier deployment.
And you mentioned, there's huge wait times right now, which just costs the independent operator a lot of time and money, right?
Yeah, there's wait times on the regular freeways and traffic jams, and in some port gates, there's long queues that can take an hour to get 1 mile into that gate. And it does cost money, for some drayage drivers. These are, owner-operators. It could be the difference between making 2 runs a day versus 3 runs a day, and that's money. That's money for them. It's very, very doable.
Well, and it leads to that whole opening about the jobs. There's going to be jobs for those people, but also the new jobs that come about maintaining these automation systems, right?
There will be maintenance jobs, certainly. There will be some sort of remote overwatch for even the lower level systems. The trucks will always be connected to the cloud. There'll be a network operations center, which was discussed by Peloton. There may be remote supervisors for even the higher automation trucks. So those will be new jobs. And that sort of thing has already happened for port automation, where that's all private property. Those some of those jobs moving containers around have been automated, but their supervisors, those drivers, have transferred to a automation supervisory role.
Probably a nice air-conditioned office.
Exactly.
And then to your point earlier about mining trucks and stuff, these are jobs that people don't necessarily want, right?
Yeah, the job is not seen as attractive by the vast majority of folks. Older drivers are retiring at high rates. Younger drivers aren't particularly attracted to it, from everything I hear. So item A is to make that job more attractive, and when we have to, we will replace some of those tasks by automation.
Excellent. Well, I really appreciate your time.
You're so welcome.
Thank you.